You are listening to Dream and Do, a podcast for big-hearted creatives, empaths, and sensitive souls who are ready to show up wholeheartedly in their businesses and their lives. My name is Nicola Ray Wickham, and I'll be helping you to be seen and heard and build brands that make a real, meaningful contribution to the world. Your whole self is welcome to this table, and you're invited to pull up a chair and join me for confidence pep talks, soulful insights, and practical tips on all things creativity, marketing, truth-telling, and story sharing, and powerful conversations with amazing, wholehearted women who are dreaming and doing in action and disrupting the status quo as they go. This is the stuff you're going to wish you knew years ago, but don't worry, we are doing this in community, you are not alone, and it's not too late. This is our time. Hey loves, and welcome back to the podcast. So this is a very impromptu episode, and I feel a little bit lost because I'm not walking down the road with one hand on the buggy and my phone in the other hand. It feels a little bit of a luxury. I'm sat at my dining room table with my microphone, with a coffee, overlooking a rainy day in London town. And it's an impromptu episode because it's really come up as a result of what I'm working on at the moment and where I'm kind of taking my clients on. And it's a message that really came through strongly for me this morning as I looked at the calendar and realised that my eldest daughter goes back to school 2 weeks tomorrow. Like, this was the fastest summer holidays ever, although it feels like she's also been on summer holiday since March. And this time, I mean, going back to school is always a thing, right? For all of us, whether we are actually going back to school, whether we've got kids that are going back to school or not, there's a sense in the air. You can kind of feel it in the air, this back to school feeling. And it's definitely different this year because everything about 2020 has been different. But this year really is almost is a line in the sand of all the uncertainty that we have felt throughout 2020. And it's because of that. And I'm also knee deep with my mini masterminders where we're working on their profitable purpose. It's kind of a culmination of that has led me to want to talk to you about this today. So where we are now is we have a couple of weeks left of August, and then we are into September. We are into the final quarter of what has been a tremendously strange year. And I know that there are going to be different camps of people, right? In NLP, we talk about cause and effect. So you can be at the cause of something, and that's where you are taking action, where you're in momentum, where you are knowing that you can influence what is going to happen. Or you can be at the effect of it, and the effect you're just kind of experiencing it all. I think in visuals, so I imagine like this little stick person and the wind is kind of battering them, and until they just fall over and they're lying flat on the pavement. Dramatic, I know, are my stick drawings. But it's that's when we're at effect, where everything is just happening to us. And we get to choose in this time that we're in whether we want to be at the cause or we want to be at the effect. And I say this with so much compassion for feeling like we're at the effect, because in some senses, the Matrix is dictating that we are. There is a lot that is out of our control. There's a lot that is happening that we get swept into. Of course, and I will never not mention and acknowledge the systemic and societal structures and conditions that create limitations and create a very real lived reality and experience. all of that put together can make us feel like we're at the effect. And in a sense, essentially what that does is it takes our power away. The one thing that I want you to get from this episode is that you still, beyond all of that, you still have the opportunity to take your power back, to own your power, and to be powerful, which I see as full of your own power. And it may be in different ways than you envisaged, or even that you would like, right? But there are still ways that you can do that. And one of them is to take back this year. Yes, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I'm still a little bit tentative whether my daughter's even going to be going back to school. I haven't sorted out her uniform because I'm just like, is it actually happening? But I really need to sort out the uniform because otherwise I am that parent that is queuing outside the school shop because they've left it to the last minute. And so I get that we're sitting in the midst of a very uncertain period, but it doesn't mean that we have to give away the rest of our year. We don't have to do that. There are definitely places and spaces where we can take that power back, where we can be at the cause side rather than just entirely existing within the effect. And the question that I want to ask you, that you'll hear me probably saying a lot between now and the end of the year, is what story do you want to be telling in December 2020? Because although if you were with me when I did my Write Your 2020 story in December, January last year, it's a question that I asked. And although the answer might look different, it might feel different, it may have adjusted, there is still an opportunity for you to constantly be writing that story. Constantly then be taking the action that supports that outcome, that allows the protagonist, i.e. you, to follow that journey and that path so that that is the story at the end. Like I see the end of this year, this last quarter, as another chapter that at the moment is blank. And I say that aside from all of the stuff that we know is going on externally, it's still a blank page. It's still blank pages for you to fill in and complete. And I love to get real practical with this. And those of you that have been here for a while know that I love journaling. I implore you to get your journals out, whether you're a journaler or not, give it a chance. Because ultimately we can take away the word journaling if it feels loaded to you and it feels like, I don't know how to journal. I know you know how to write, yeah? So pick up the pen and the paper and just start writing. Write that story of what you would want to be telling in December 2020. And now is the time to start thinking about it. It really, really is. And yes, enjoy the rest of your summer holidays if you've decided to take it off. But don't wait until the 1st of September to be like, right, now I'm ready. Because it will feel like such a jump. And that's where the overwhelm can set in. Because believe me, when we get to September, I'm a marketeer, right? All of the back to school messages, new start messages kind of kick in. And I don't want you to get caught up in the overwhelm of that. So whilst I'm not saying if you've decided to take the summer off and you haven't been on, I'm not saying that you need to kind of clear your desk and get back to work now. But what you can do is invite in the thinking time. I was reading something this week. I'm just going to say I really want to write a book, right? And I've actually started putting pen to paper, all of these ideas that were in my head that were mind maps. I've started to actually tap out the words, which is really exciting. And I was reading something about tips for writing. And this guy was saying that just know that the majority of your work is actually your thinking time and not your writing time. And he said that, I mean, he was talking to people that write for a living and mainly write fiction as well. Not that I don't know if that makes a difference. But what he was saying is that so many people are only almost counting the time that they are sat down actually tapping out the words of their book, but not the thinking time. And he was saying, actually, the thinking time is even more important. The thinking time is valid and it's valuable and it's imperative. And that's what I'm suggesting to you, is that you give yourself some thinking time. And it will look, well, I would love it to look like you putting pen to paper and answering that question, what story do you want to be telling in December 2020? And then it can be as involved and in depth as you want it to be. So maybe it is like, we have set the intention by you listening to this, and if you accept the invitation, you've already stepped into that energy field, and you can then just set the intention to gain some clarity, to let the ideas remunerate over the next few weeks. And that's just a really gentle intention. So as you're driving, as you're walking, as you are washing up, like as you are just working out, doing stuff, you've set the intention to allow the thinking to begin, right? So that will work for some of you. Some of you want more steadfast thinking time, like you're sitting down with your calendar, plotting things in the diary and scheduling them out and actually thinking about, what do I want to be creating? What do I want to do? You might want to put some income goals and some targets and all of that jazz in there. So I've given you the either ends of the spectrum, and neither is better nor worse, because I don't know your individual circumstances. Only you can say what you feel to do. But all I do know that is true for you is that there's an opportunity in this window that we have for you to invite in this gentle thinking, this soulful planning, which is something I talk to my membership members about. And so that you can go into September and go into the last few months of 2020 being at the cause of it rather than at the effect. So I cannot end this podcast without also referencing the year that has been 2020, right? So we know about the challenges, we know about the uncertainties. It's also been a year of opportunity, because whenever the chips are down, whenever things are looking really rocky, there are always pockets of opportunity, which for some people in some spheres, in some ways, end up being huge craters of opportunity. And there's an opportunity for you as well. So there's an opportunity for you to start to reimagine what your work looks like in this new space that we're in. So definitely there's that reimagining piece. And then if you're listening to this podcast, I know that you have work in the world that you believe needs to be out there. So some of you might be at the stage of you're doing it, and some of you are thinking about it. And either way, what unites us is this desire to do better, to and when I say do better, as in to help the world do better through the work that we want to do. And part of that is you using your voice and you saying the things that you really want to say in the way that you want to say them, you standing up side by side with your values, you showing up as your wholehearted self in a wholehearted way, and you really sitting in the seat of what is true and authentic for you. And what this year has shown us is that we need that even more than we ever have done before. Like, I believe we've always needed it. This year has shown us that we need it tenfold. And what's been really interesting to me, and I've shared on this podcast before, is like, I'm somebody who teaches on finding your voice, using your voice and amplifying your voice. And that's exactly what I have also done this year. Taking my voice to another level, shining the light on my own teachings on myself yet again. And what I really ask you to see, and for some of you it might be a reframe, for some of you it might be a invitation, for some of you it might annoy you a little bit. But this year is presenting that opportunity for you to use your voice. I've started doing episodes of the podcast with guests again, which I'm so excited about, interspersing them with these impromptu solo episodes. And what again unites all of my guests is that they use their voices, and they use them unapologetically and wholeheartedly, and they're real examples of what showing up in your authentic voice and authentic self looks like. And I do that because I want to showcase them to you. I want to share them. And also because I believe that when we see those examples out there, it gives us permission to show up that way. It gives us the affirmation, validation, permission, and almost like just a big old hand, right? A hand reaching out saying, yeah, come. Nothing bad will happen. Because I know some of you thinking, if I use my voice in that way, like the world is going to end. It's not going to end. And these women are proof that the world doesn't end. And one of my latest episodes, which hasn't yet come out, as of the time of recording this episode, it will be out in September, is where I had my beautiful, wonderful friends, Nova Reid and Tammy Thomas on. And the conversation that we had, like I keep saying, when I'm talking about it, is the conversation that we would have been reserved probably for our WhatsApp conversations, or would have been reserved for sitting around the dinner table when we were able to do that. And instead we're hitting record and hitting publish and putting it out to the world. And if that's not an example of how the zeitgeist has changed, how much scope there is for us all to deepen into our voices and deepen into our truths, no matter what your truth looks like or feels like, there is that opportunity for you to take it and amplify it and put it out there if you feel called to. And I have a feeling that you do feel called to. Because when you're not, when you're like sitting on your hands, you've got that metaphorical hand over your mouth, stopping it from coming out. It creates this unease. It creates this angsty, kind of almost resistant feeling. And then you're scrolling Instagram and you're seeing other people doing it. You're like, sometimes it might even translate into envy and a bit of jealousy. And I actually think there's a beautiful reframe on that, which is when you're scrolling, when you're looking around the internet, when you pick up a book, like whatever it is, you're consuming something and you see something that gives you that pang of like, you know what I mean? I can only make a noise for it. It's actually you being shown by the divine, by the ancestors, by the universe, what is possible for you if you allow it, right? And then you've got that choice whether to continue to sit in that feeling or to change that noise into your voice being used to add your contribution, that beautiful word, contribution, add your contribution to the mix. Pull up your chair at the table and state your contribution, or create your own table and just start. So, my loves, that is this episode. And yeah, pick up the pen. What story do you want to be telling in December 2020? Let me know. I would love to hear. Slide into my DMs on Instagram, and let's talk about it. And like I said, like, don't waste the opportunity that this year presents to us, because the powers that be, the Matrix, the systems want you to be at the effect. And wherein you hear a lot about take your power back, take your power back, never has it been more relevant, but only when it's made tangible and real. And that's what I've really sought to do in this episode is make that notion of take your power back, make it something that isn't just a cute quote on Insta, right? Or a cute personal development rhetoric or saying. It's actually something that you can see contextualized into the current time and contextualized into your life. And I'm excited to see what you do with it. And before I come off this podcast and go back to writing my audiobook, which is all about thriving as an empath in business, which I cannot wait to share with you. If fear is something that you know is getting in your way, then I have a free workshop that you can access, and it's on my website. I'll put the link in the show notes, but it's a really good way of drilling down, like, what is it I'm afraid of, what it is I'm afraid of, so that you can start to really move forward. Okay, my loves, sending you all the love, and I will see you really soon. Hey love, and thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, you know what I'm going to ask you to do. Please head over to Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star review and a rating. It helps this important conversation and message get to more people. And also, please feel free to share it with anyone who you think needs to hear it. I would love to continue the conversation over on Instagram. I'm there at A Life More Inspired. And I will see you on the next episode.